And that's all I've got. I'm going to let Ryan go ahead and take you through.
Thanks, Jamie. Hey, everybody. I'm Ryan. I'm an account executive at Affinio, like Jamie mentioned. Affinio basically leverages big data and social media to help marketers and brands and researchers understand today's consumer. And in true typical fashion, I'm going to lead off with a quote, one of my favorite quotes, actually, and that's, "People who ignore research are as dangerous as generals who ignore decodes of enemy signals." I want you to think about that for a second. People who ignore research are as dangerous as generals who ignore decodes of enemy signals. What I'm trying to take away from this slide is that you either research and plan or die, quite simply. And the key takeaway here is us as researchers, brand marketers alike, we're trying to research in order to resonate, in order to understand our consumers. This is the problem. There's so much new technology on the MarTech landscape that it's really hard to identify which one is right for the job you're looking to accomplish. Marketing Land recently estimated around 2,000 companies in this space right now, and combined with our second major challenge, which is the implosion of social data and data in general that's being created every day, we're constrained in our ability to actually analyze data at this kind of scale in a way that's meaningful, communicatable, and holistically understandable. So we rely on social listening. We look at what people are talking about. And this proliferation of data, especially in the social space, has lent itself to understanding people through what they talk about, what they say. The major challenge associated with that is not a lot of people on social talk at the end of the day. Less people talk directly about your brand or on topic. And this really exacerbates our ability to understand these audiences based on what they're interested in, and scratching beneath that layer of conversation to say, who are these people at the end of the day? By looking at those vocal conversations, we see illuminated pockets of minorities of our small target audience, and we miss the big picture. We miss the silent lurkers, the people that aren't talking, that aren't conversing, that are merely there passively consuming and have affinity to your brand without ever sending an explicit signal to suggest otherwise. This is your audience at the end of the day. A melting pot of individuals, each with unique interests, passions, myriad interests and passions, that never really truly map to one category or taxonomy, a static kind of interest like gaming, for example. Really what makes up those interests is really a culmination of accounts of people, places, things that these people have affinity to and follow, things that they don't typically talk about. And if we look at that audience based on conversations alone, we're only looking at a very small snapshot of it. We're only looking at those who are most vocally engaged, which leads itself and lends itself to the need for technology like social network graph analytics that lets us understand consumers based on interest, and that we call the interest graph. And that's not first by looking at those conversations, it's actually by looking fundamentally at the connections, the people, places, things that people follow. And I want you to think about yourself and how you use social media. Are you a lurker, or are you an active participant? I know myself, I'm on Twitter several times a day. I'm cheering for my favorite sports teams. I'm following my favorite celebrities. I'm interested in news and media that pertains to my industry and digital marketing. But I don't really tweet that much. And if I do tweet, I'm probably only talking about business. But that doesn't really get at who I am as a person, which is a diehard Blue Jays fan. I'm a Canadian after all. And that's an MLB team, for those of you who don't know. This is what we see right now. Noise. Mud, as we like to call it from a network graph visualization standpoint. It's just conversations without context, floating out there, making itself available for us to analyze, but in a way that doesn't really let us get at the context. It doesn't let us understand the true audience. Until now. By looking at these connections, the interest graph actually allows us to see 100% of any target audience. And it lets us actually segment and understand them based on those interests. And then we can layer on all of that additional data, what those people are talking about, what content they're consuming, where they go to actually find and consume that content, and who they share it with, who they actually are interested in and passionate about. And not a static category like I mentioned, but a true representation of what an individual's interest looks like. And now I'm going to talk about it in a real live example. Digiday wrote a great article 2 weeks ago. For those who don't know, Digiday is a digital media publication. And they were talking about brands jumping on the use of a hashtag like adulting. And really the whole premise of the argument was, by just trying to really use adulting to hop onto a millennial bandwagon, we're not really resonating with the different types of millennials. We're lumping them into a broad category. We're looking at them, individuals aged 18 to 34. They'll look like this. This is a sample of profile photos of those talking about adulting. And generally, the buck tends to stop there. We look at a demographic, we make some deductions, we make some assumptions without really understanding who those individuals are. And in fact, these individuals are not the same. There's two starkly different groups inside that amalgamation of profile photos. So what seemingly appear to be very, very similar homogeneous cohorts actually are fundamentally different at the end of the day. You've got your mainstreams, and you've got your sci-fi, nerdy kind of fangirls. How do we know? It's not based on what they talked about, because both of them talked about adulting. Both of them pretty much look the same when we're kind of looking at this from an archetype perspective. It's based on what they follow. It's based on their interest graph. People who talk about adulting, these are what different clusters are following. These are related groups of accounts that people have an affinity to that we're able to actually shed light on for the first time and start to group these people together accordingly into these interest-based personas or clusters that we can then find out everything we need to know in order to really understand what makes them tick and effectively resonate with them. The top group prefers Starbucks. The bottom prefers Star Wars. While they both share Anna Kendrick in common, the next top influence for the mainstream girls is Ellen, followed by Kardashians and Lauren Conrad. Don't ask me how I know that. On the bottom, we have J.K. Rowling, Hermione Granger, an assortment of Marvel characters. These are basically the subtle passions that people don't really talk about online. People don't really send those explicit signals to really give us any indication about. But if we dive a little bit deeper and we look at what these people are following, we can create these robust analyses very quickly at scale that essentially allow us to holistically understand who these groups are. So with that, I want to leave you on a parting note. Without this kind of human data layer, we're really confined to understanding audiences from a two-dimensional perspective. Without really understanding the emotional triggers, the passion points, the things left unsaid, that really is reflective of the majority of the audiences you're trying to analyze, we really miss opportunities to effectively resonate and engage with sub-cohorts in what is, a homogeneous group of millennials from a demographic perspective. So I want you to think about this as you leave here today, about diving deeper into your audience and really understanding them on a one-to-one personal level at scale. Thank you.
Thanks, Ryan. So before Ryan leaves the stage, does anybody have any questions? I saw his hand shoot up right
I saw you writing notes.
Can you tell me which algorithm
we got a mic
using?
for you there, sorry.
Hi. Hey. I do social network analysis, which has become available now through a lot of these open source softwares, and it's pretty cool. It's graph theory, and I was just wondering if you could tell me which algorithm you're using, or
We've developed a proprietary algorithm. We actually won an award at the Strata conference in New
are you
York.
interested in more work? Because I might have some.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's
Okay.
connect after this.
And who else has a question? Oh, anyone? Someone with a mic. Anybody else have a question? All right, well, Ryan, can you speak to maybe some examples of companies who have already been successfully leveraging this technology, the interest graph technology?
Sure. The BBC being one of our earliest adopters. Really, really great evangelist of ours is David Boyle, the Executive Vice President at BBC Worldwide for Insights. The BBC uses Affinio to basically gauge television demand in any country across the world and actually segment TV audiences to introduce new shows in new countries, as well as better market and promote their shows in their existing countries. So Doctor Who, Sherlock, for example, has been one of the BBC's main initiatives, and they've increasingly been looking to penetrate foreign markets and using Affinio along that line to figure out who those TV fan audiences are with affinity to the brand in any respective market, and basically how to inform their digital marketing campaigns to reach and resonate those audiences through influencer campaigns, through better data-driven content development, and through an understanding and the ability to actually target people based on the website properties that they visit, as well as the accounts they follow.
Cool. Thank you. Got one over here. Go ahead. Right over here.
Yeah.
So apologies if you covered it at the start of the talk, but are you, when you say interest groupings, are you using just what they follow, or are you also including in that what they're actually saying? So is there some element of the content that they're pushing out that actually goes into the interest graph?
There is. It can be an input, and we also look at not only connectivity, but we look at network traffic between groups of people. So we can discern, whether in a cluster, a lot of people are talking about a related subject. We can pull topical themes out of it. We can start to see if people are mentioning directly at one another and directly connected to one another, and use that to figure out how friendly a cluster is to each other, how dense it is.
And if I may follow up on that, so do you ever, one of the things that people have asked us about is whether we want to weight up or down certain influences in a network. Is that something you guys do as well?
It is. We actually have our own philosophy about influencers. It's not the quantity, it's the quality. It's about who's actually in the audience of those influencers. Really good case in point, is one of our biggest agency clients, Digital. They just won Global Media Agency of the Year, winning Coke, CVS, Johnson & Johnson on the back of these micro-influencer campaigns that Affinio enables, that lets them identify people with not overly large followings, not a lot of reach, but who collectively, when combined together, form a network of highly, highly relevant audiences that are ultimately hyper-targeted to the audience they want to speak to. So rather than looking at people who get a lot of engagement, have a lot of followers, they actually look at people whose audience consists of the majority of the cluster or the persona that they're trying to really penetrate and market to. Thank you.
Anybody else have a question for Ryan? Okay, well, I have one more for you then. So you recently gave a talk at IIeX Health. And so given that, I wanted to know, do these types of interest graph technologies, do these insights apply both to B2B and B2C brands?
Yeah, I know the presentation kind of skewed B2C and plenty of applications there. Really what I'm passionate about is B2B and lead gen at the end of the day. I mean, at the end of the day, you're looking to reach highly targeted buyers longer down in the funnel, longer tail. And really what Affinio is great at and what we were born from initially was targeting B2B audiences. We built our whole business off of it ourselves by targeting digital marketers that we find in reports we run on Ad Age or Adweek, for example. And then we just moved the needle, basically. We run hyper-targeted Twitter ads, and almost an entire business has been built off Twitter ads. 70% of our inbounds, highly qualified, by the way, are silent lurkers, people that never talk, that are more or less following an assortment of accounts that are very specific to their industry. We can deduce who those industry thought leaders are, who the up-and-comers are. We can basically deduce the publications, the website properties they visit. We know everywhere they're at online, and we know everything they're interested in. And we use that insight and knowledge to better market to them through messaging and content that we create. And at the end of the day, better targeting through the interest graph and not through those static categories I mentioned, like the native platforms offer.
Great. Any other questions for Ryan? All right, well, let's give him a hand. Thank you for sharing.
Thanks, guys.
Cool. Thank you. Good job.